What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. So a number of months back, I posted a video with the exact same title as this one, and for legal reasons, I opted to remake the entire video just to make it absolutely crystal clear that the contents of this video reflect my opinion, and there's no way to claim anything that I'm saying as fact. But the content of the video is basically the same stuff. You'll just hear me sprinkling a little bit more clarity about things that are definitely my opinion. Now, without further ado, let's hop straight into this video. So for the longest time, ever since I knew that BetterHelp existed, I've always kind of wondered what it was like to work for them. I mean, you hear things here and there, but I just wondered what the experience was like. So much so that a number of years back, I actually attempted to record a video like this one where I applied to be a BetterHelp therapist. Now, I'll admit that I did not execute that video very well, so now is the opportunity to call do-over. I really want to know what it's like to work for BetterHelp. So for today's video, I posted to my Instagram stories inviting you all who've worked for BetterHelp to share what your experience was like working for them. In particular, I wanted to know about three things. How does BetterHelp pay? How do they treat you as the clinician? And how do they treat the clients? I received several responses via those Instagram posts, and I compiled them all together, and I'll be sharing those anonymously in today's video where we really dive into the question, what's it really like to work as a BetterHelp therapist? Now, I can completely see the appeal of working for a place like BetterHelp because maybe you're seeing it as a place to kind of fill your open slots while you're trying to build your private practice, or maybe it's like a side gig on whatever your main gig is, or maybe it's like your full-time gig and it's sending clients your way and filling your schedule. Now, I'd like to emphasize that this is completely anonymous feedback and it only represents the opinions and experiences of the folks who responded to my Instagram posts. So I removed all identifying information and compiled it together in a Excel type spreadsheet so that you can see that information without kind of outing the folks that gave that feedback. Okay, I've been jibber jabbering for a while. Let's start hearing about what people had to say about BetterHelp. Let's first talk about that first question, how does BetterHelp pay? I specifically asked how much BetterHelp pays per hour, and right off the bat you'll notice that there's quite a range of pay represented here in people's responses. I don't claim to know why there's so much discrepancy here. One thing that I considered that might be possible is that maybe some of the folks who responded worked for BetterHelp quite a long time ago and hadn't been working for them more recently, and maybe their pay has changed over time. Also, please keep in mind again that all of the numbers that are reflected here are just simply what people submitted as what they claimed their experience was. In the Excel document, I listed people's reported pay from lowest to highest, and you'll see there's that huge range with the lowest pay starting at $15 an hour that someone reported all the way up to $50 an hour. So there is a huge range here, but you'll also notice that for the majority of the responses that I got, things are hovering more in the like $30 to $40 an hour range. And if you average out the responses from all these different folks, it comes out to $33.79 per hour based on what people claimed they made per hour working for BetterHelp. Now, I can't know if that's actually reflective of how much someone might make on average per hour while working for BetterHelp, but I will say I can imagine, especially if I were an early career therapist and I heard that I could make $33 an hour while somebody else was in charge of doing all of the marketing for me and I could effectively work from home with very minimal overhead costs. That sounds very appealing. But on the flip side, now that I've been in the field for at least a little bit of time, not only do I know that I can definitely average far more than $33 an hour per client hour, but I'm also well aware that, at least for me and for a lot of therapists, around 20 to 25 client hours per week is what most of us consider to be full-time work. For a few different reasons. One is just that we have a lot of admin stuff that we have to get done. So if you're doing 40 hours a week of client work, your total hours of work per week are actually far more than 40 because you have all like note taking and all these other things that we do on the back end that can take a surprising amount of time. And also, again, for the average therapist, seeing that many clients per week is incredibly emotionally taxing. So it's helpful to keep that in mind as we look at this reported average pay of $33 an hour that for most folks, we may not be multiplying that by 40 to get what the total pay is per week. It's possible that for many folks we're multiplying it by something like 20 or 25 to get what the weekly pay looks like. But just for funsies, because who doesn't love a little bit of math, let's work out that math real quick. If you actually did those 40 client hours per week for, let's say, 48 weeks a year, so you can take a bit of vacation at an average pay of $33 an hour, that comes out to just over $60,000 a year, which, depending on what lens you use, some people might say that's a lot, and some people might say that's a little, but certainly higher than the average pay in the US, and so cool. But let's switch it up and imagine for a moment that you might be working 20 hours a week instead, which might be a little bit more reflective of what the average therapist in private practice is doing. Then if we do that same math, and it comes out to just over $30,000 per year. You can decide for yourself if you feel like that is decent pay or not, but I think it is very reasonable to say that you could be working 20 client hours in a lot of other settings and be making more than $30,000 a year. Now, of course, all of this is absolutely speculative. I have no idea how many client hours the average BetterHelp therapist is working, or even if $33 an hour is the average pay. But just based on the subset of people with what they reported, this is kind of the math that's shaken out. In addition to reporting their average pay while working with BetterHelp, many folks also added additional comments, which I think adds some color and perspective. One person says they only allow 45-minute sessions, which equals $22.50 per session. Now, this is an interesting perspective. Now, of course, I haven't worked for BetterHelp to kind of test out whether this is accurate or not, but I have seen that they offer 45-minute and 30-minute sessions. So if what this person is saying were true, that would mean if, let's say, your average hourly pay is $30 an hour, but you have a 45-minute session, maybe your pay for that session might look something more like $22 an hour. Or if it's a 30-minute session, then maybe it's $15 an hour. Now, of course, this is only representative of my personal experience, but personally, I feel like 2 30-minute sessions with different people is a lot more work than, say, a 50-minute session with one person. One way to conceptualize how I experience a therapy session is, rather than it just being like flying an airplane for 30 minutes, it's getting the airplane ready, taking off the airplane, flying the airplane, landing the airplane, and getting off of the airplane every single session. So you have to squeeze all of that stuff into a 30-minute window and then do it all over again in a separate 30-minute window instead of, say, maybe one 50-minute window, for example. The amount of work involved is just a lot more. Again, at least for me. Okay, now this is interesting. Somebody commented it depended on the length of text messages. Now this is a really interesting claim. I tried looking into it. I couldn't really find more information about it, whether from the BetterHelp website or elsewhere, really. Are you paid differently based on the length of your text responses? I can't really know for sure. I will say I get it. On the one hand, if a client sends me a long message and I give a one-word reply, I clearly did way less work than if I had a thought-out paragraph in response. But still, there's something that just doesn't sit well about this claim if it were true. And here's another one that goes back to what we were just talking about, 30 an hour with 2 clients. It's interesting that we're hearing that claim now more than once. Take it for what it is. It's 2 people reporting this to me. But I can't even fathom seeing 2 clients and making $30. I mean, that's just painful to imagine. And I'm gonna repeat something. Keep in mind that these are just people's claims, but wow, what a wide range that people reported back. 15 an hour all the way up to 50 an hour. That's a huge difference. It almost makes it hard to know what's going on there. Okay, so pay is really important to ask about, but there's also so much more to the work that we do aside from pay. So I wanted to ask folks, what's it like to work for BetterHelp as a therapist? You know, does it feel like meaningful work? Do you feel equipped to give the best care that you can? Just any information about the experience of what it's like as a therapist working for BetterHelp. So let's see what people had to say. Somebody says, awesome clients, they came quick, easy work, paid weekly, direct deposit. The only con is low pay. Okay, the con of low pay, we've already talked about it, and in my opinion, that's a pretty big con. But that aside, this person's saying otherwise, everything else about their experience was really positive with BetterHelp, so that's really good to hear. Okay, this person says, easy to use platform, lots of clients, and freedom to choose who you work with. Horrible pay. I think we're seeing a little bit of a theme here from just what people are reporting. Again, same big con that we heard before, but everything else, it's sounding pretty good. Okay, let's also hear some of the not so positive reflections people had to say. One person says, it was okay, felt fragmented at times. I wish I had not signed up. Oh, it's just so painful to read that. I mean, that's really the question that we're after here, right? Like, is this worth it? This person has some different pieces of feedback, but ultimately they're saying for them, ooh, that was not worth it for me. I wish I had not signed up. And that's just, I'm sorry, person. I'm sorry that was your experience. Someone else says, I felt overwhelmed the entire time I worked for them. Ugh. I mean, I want to share this information because it's important for people to hear, but I'm also just feeling so sad reading this. Like, I don't want anyone to feel this way in their workplace, and I'm sorry that at least for these folks, that was just sounds like really rough. Now, genuinely, when I put this question out on Instagram, inviting folks feedback about what it's like working for BetterHelp, of course, I had my own biases coming into it, but I also had never worked for BetterHelp before. I was thinking there would be more nuance in the replies. And here I'm kind of just feeling sad that it's not as nuanced as I had anticipated that it might be. Another person says, awful, zero boundaries, unhealthy cycle of therapy process. Ugh. Another one says, I'm having to schedule and fix a lot of mistakes that the staff is making at the company. And another person says, it was okay in the beginning, but in order to make a good amount of money, I had to see 40 plus clients per week. Oh, I mean, this just reminds me of what we were talking about earlier when we did all that math with the pay. And at least for this person, they felt like in order to make a decent amount of pay, they had to see a lot of clients per week. Now, someone else says it was stressful. The demand they put on therapists to respond to messages equals burnout. Ooh, I wonder what that means. So this person says the demand they put on therapists to respond to messages. I wonder what that is. Like, is there some allotted time frame for, if when your client sends you a message, you have, so long to respond, or are there boundaries around your work schedule? Like, do you get weekends off, or how that plays out? I'd be really curious to know what the expectations are there. And someone else says stressful because sometimes they assign clients when I wasn't accepting. Ooh. Yikes. I've been in that situation before where I've told a prior employer that my schedule was full and they just kept on plugging folks into my online schedule. For me, that just made me feel so out of control, not only of my schedule, but kind of like my entire workplace experience. And it really took a toll on my mental health. Okay, now let's move on to the last question that I asked folks, which was, what was the quality of the client experience like? Of course, we want to know what the experience is like as a therapist and how well therapists are paid or not. But also, I could imagine a scenario where, regardless of the answers for those first two questions, that maybe the client experience could be more positive or more nuanced at least, and you'll see here that there's actually more of a broader range of what people reported back. So let's hear some of the positive things that folks reported back. Awesome, you can speak with them daily, they get more support and encouragement. Now I'm wondering if what this person was referring to is like more support and encouragement than you would get in a traditional seeing a therapist once a week setting where you might not be in contact in between your sessions. It sounds like BetterHelp has a lot of structures in place where you can contact your therapist in between sessions or maybe more often and that sort of thing, which sounds super helpful. Someone else says, depends on the therapist. 100%. Amen to that. And here's another positive reflection. The clients are great. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the clients are clients. Okay, we did also get some kind of mixed reviews in here, so let's hear some of those. Somebody says, I think the quality was okay, but for sure, some days I was so burnt out from too many clients. That's been my worry. So it sounds like this person's experience aligns with what I've been afraid of. When we burn out as therapists, in time, it starts to impact our clients as well. Now, this person is saying that they're burnt out from too many clients, whether that's all through the BetterHelp platform or just all in life, I don't know, but it's important to note how big of an impact burnout has on our ability to offer the best client care. Okay, and now let's hear some of the negative reviews. Obviously, I already have seen them because I've typed this out. Some of them are really painful for me to hear, but let's hear them. One person says, I felt like I could not provide my best work within the BetterHelp platform, unfortunately. Ugh, that's so tough. Obviously, our work environment influences our capacity to do good work. They didn't elaborate why, but for this person, they felt like something about the environment with BetterHelp made it not possible for them to provide their best work. So that's just hard to hear. Someone else says, I wish I knew more about client privacy terms. They aren't very ethical in this area. Now, this is obviously a very significant claim. This is reaching far beyond the scope of what I can touch on in this video, beyond just simply sharing what this person reported. Keep in mind, this is one individual's claim. If you want to look into it and explore what they might be talking about, you're more than welcome to. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to leave it there and carry on. And another review, I think clients got the idea that we were always at the screens on-call style. That's really interesting. I mean, I could see that being a pro for the client and maybe a con for the therapist, who knows? Now, overall, compared to what folks reported in regards to BetterHelp's pay, as well as how they treat their therapists, it seems like there was a bit more nuance, some more positive things that people had to say regarding the client experience through BetterHelp. So I'm glad to see that at least. Now, I'm aware that there's a whole lot of stuff about BetterHelp that I'm leaving unaddressed just by sharing this information, but I thought that there's value in sharing what people had to say in response to these questions. Now, I think my feelings about BetterHelp generally have been pretty clear, but you can take this information and digest it however you wish. I will say I did do a little digging on Indeed.com as well, because of course the responses that I got here are just reflective of these few folks and folks who are my followers on Instagram. But you can see through Indeed.com, there's a bit more nuance to people's experiences, though we are seeing some themes pop up there as well. I mean, just a couple of titles that we see pop up: pay structure is terrible, great work environment, terrible compensation, freedom for a price, great clients, great platform, my only complaint is the salary structure. You can take a look for yourself. It keeps going and going. These are fairly recent reviews from 2022. I've linked to this website below if that's something you're interested in checking out as well. Whether you're a therapist who's worked for BetterHelp before or right now, you're thinking about working for BetterHelp someday, or maybe you're not a therapist and you're just kind of curious about what it's like to work for BetterHelp, I hope you found this video helpful and educational. Again, I know I didn't cover all that there is to cover related to what it's like to work for BetterHelp, but I hope that this was illuminating information. Just within some of the comments that we heard from folks today, there were some pretty significant allegations that people made, which, if they were true, would be highly concerning. I'm wondering about things like what the pay structure really looks like, what the work-life balance really looks like, and also some other allegations that I didn't even tap into in this video that I find highly concerning and would want to find out more about before I really get into them into this video. Well, I could certainly go on and on about my thoughts and my feelings and my opinions, but I think I'm gonna leave it here. Hopefully you feel empowered, if you are considering working for BetterHelp, or maybe you already work for them, to just do your own research and make sure that whatever you find out about them aligns with what you're looking for. And let me just repeat my disclaimer from the top. Again, everything in this video only reflects my opinions and the opinions of folks who submitted their responses anonymously through my questionnaire on Instagram, and take it for what it is. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.